So what I find, either the leader is going to be hard on the employee, or what I've seen, another thing that paralyzes an organization for going forward is that leader, because to avoid mistakes, they bottleneck the company, and they just keep it all on their shoulders.
Right.
And they can't scale past that, right?
Yeah.
So I have one right now is, in the organization, is the people under this manager are saying, well, every time I ask for help, he just shows up and does it. He doesn't show me how to do it, right? And so there has to be some kind of mental block in his mind of, I want it done the right way, so I'm just going to keep doing it. Mm-hmm. I see it a lot of times in real estate, right? So we'll have a really great real estate agent who is doing, growing. They're doing 10, 12, $15 million a year in sales, which is a lot, but they can't get past this idea that to go to 20 million, they're going to have to expand and to bring in an assistant or bring in somebody. But they're paralyzed with the fact that mistakes might happen.
Yeah. Well, that's really totally what the E-Myth is about in a nutshell. Mm-hmm. It's about the way that somebody transitions from being a technician or somebody who's making the sales to somebody who's leading a team of people making the sales. Number one, it's very difficult to make that. And you talk about mistakes, and so I agree with everything that you said, is that there's a cultural element to this mistake. I think my framing is a little different. So when I'm thinking about maybe mistakes within the process that we've defined, I think it's really coaching. I don't see it as much as, of course, there is admonishment, and there is times where, if you've exhausted your resources in training, coaching, and you're doing it not just from a perspective of, hey, this is a boss who's cracking down on a subordinate. You're doing this as a person who cares about another person and their success. Yep. And so if you take that posture and that humility along with the training and coaching and training and coaching, you get to a point where the person's decision to either follow or not follow, how you define the standards of your business, it's ultimately their choice. They're making that choice to either say, yes, this is something I want to do, or no, this is something that I don't want to do. Now, if it's something I don't want to do, is different than something I can't do or I don't understand how to do. Yeah. Because if it's in that bucket, great opportunity for the leader to coach, train, and then while you're doing that, think about mission. It's, you're using this as a platform to speak into somebody's life, right? So those two things can be done simultaneously. I've seen it. I know it can be done. Mm-hmm. So does that person who's being trained and coached bottle up and shut down? They can, but I think that if your approach is correct, and your philosophy is correct, I think that you will get to a place where the decision kind of has to be made. Hey, is this how you want to bake the cake or not? Mm-hmm. But up until that point, there's so much opportunity to grow somebody and to speak into their life. Yeah. So for that person who's maybe for you, what you're saying is that they're just afraid to make a mistake on maybe something they don't know how to do.
Yeah, I would say, when I think of mistakes being made or repetitive mistakes, one, there are some people that are just going to refuse to do what's asked of them, mm-hmm. right? And you should have a short leash for those people.
Sounds like you're one of them. I mean,
I have been in the past. Look, when I was in charge of the go-karts at Putt Putt, okay, did I take them for a spin or two when I wasn't supposed to? Maybe.
How was your training and coaching at Putt Putt?
Well, not visible. So a lot of races. We turned those go-karts into bumper cars is what we did.
Okay.
So just, there are going to be some that just refuse to do it, right? They just don't want to do it.
Right.
But then in the other bucket, the other two reasons are either they're incompetent.
They don't know what they don't know.
They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Or they might just not have the skill set to do it.
Right.
Like they just can't. And I've had those people, right? I've mismatched their abilities that maybe their ingrained abilities that just can't be taught.
Yes. Yeah.
Which always leads to burnout or frustration on both ends of that relationship, right?
Right.
And so, that's very rare. Usually, it's because they just don't know, or they aren't being coached, like you said.
Maybe the big picture is not completely evident for them in some way.
Yep.
The why you're talking about.
So then the question is, how many times do you have that conversation?
Right.
So that goes back. There's a great book, Move Your Bus, and his big thing is, every organization is a bus. You have runners, joggers, walkers, and sitters, right? And so he's like, we spend so much energy focused on the walkers and sitters, trying to help them become runners, instead of our energy should be on the runners and joggers to keep them running and jogging.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good book we should talk about.
No,
Good stuff.
I think the innate skills versus training is such a fascinating conversation.
Yes.
All right. So point 3, he had 5 points, right?
Yep, 5. So here we go. It is okay, and I've heard this one before, and I've actually, if anybody's been in my organization, they've heard this for years from me. It is okay to finish building the plane as you are flying it. Which...
That sounds risky.
That is, I already know, that probably makes your hands sweaty. For me, that is like what I do. It's like, hey, we're starting this company, and we're going to figure it out as we go.
Right.
And... I would imagine for you to take an initiative or implement something new, it's pretty well thought out and structured. And
yeah, you're right. I do like to have a good game plan.
Yeah.
Now, that wouldn't stop me from trying something or changing something to not have as much definition as I'd really like.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, you're always working on the plane. I mean, there's no question. Even let's say you have something that's just, exactly what it
Especially
is.
if it's a Boeing.
Well,
right. I mean, look.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
you're always
this analogy.
Yeah.
Is that their new mission?
I think it is. But no, I give you a lot of credit because you do what I've witnessed in your businesses is you do have the proclivity to just sort of jump in and figure it out. And as I'm thinking about, the lessons that you learn are really the ones that cost you money. And I'm thinking, man, get ready, buddy.
Yeah.
You're about to learn.
Yeah, and I have.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I still am.
Yeah. No, but your approach to working on the plane while you're flying it, what do you think?
Yeah. I just think that there are just going to be a lot of answers, a lot of questions that are unanswered, right? And so one of a book that I always think of this analogy, I think it was called The Barbarian Way by Erwin McManus, but he talks about his example through the book is a rhinoceros, right? And he says, rhinoceroses are massive animals. Okay, would you agree with that?
That's what I've
Have
heard.
Have you seen them? Massive animals.
Okay.
They can run like 30 miles an hour, which is insane.
Yeah.
Right? But they have the worst eyesight of any animal. They can barely see like 10 feet in front of them. And they're running this powerful mass, running 30 miles an hour, not being able to see what's in front of them. Pretty crazy.
Seems
right?
like mismatched skills there.
Yes. But his whole point is, you should live in our Western culture, our American dream life. We have literally, we would never live a life like that where we're just going. And so there's give and take, right? Because we know the people that are literally live their life like that, and they're just a wrecking ball, right? And it's just one thing after another. And so there is wisdom in that. But here's where I take from that is that if we're waiting for all of the questions to be answered, we will never move forward and progress.
Analysis by paralysis.
And I think that part of that is because our culture, industry, the economy, every technology is moving at such a fast pace. By the time we figure it all out, we're going to be behind.
Yeah. First mover.
Exactly.
Right.
And so that's just kind of the...
Well, but even if you have the perfectly defined business, right? As you go forward, if you're not in a growth mindset, then maybe ignore what we're about to say. But if you have a growth mindset, you're always looking for the next avenue or angle or opportunity to grow. And so, of course, you're going to be working on whatever that thing is. Because, again, even if you have it perfectly, which no one does, but if you want to grow and you want to change and you want to go into this market or go into this product category, there are things that only experience is going to teach you. And even with the business that we've been doing now for 60 years, we still learn really hard, painful lessons every year. Because guess what? I mean, you can't know it all, and so I would agree to that. Even though maybe we've got slightly different risk tolerances in the way that we jump into a pool. But I think that that's absolutely true. And so no matter who you are,
and I think that when talking into this growth mindset, to me, it's not even. I do think there are seasons when you're looking for the next opportunity. But my philosophy hasn't really been to go look for the next opportunity as much as it's been to be, when the opportunity arises, I need to have my house in order. Right?
So say more about that. What does that look like?
Well, I would just say, when the opportunity arises, I need to be able to shift my resources to it without crippling what I already have. And so this needs to be in order. In order, I mean the right people in place that I can step out. It's not depending on my resources, my time, and my money to keep going. And then I can shift to this next thing and devote my time, energy, and money to it to grow this new thing.
All the bells went off in my head when you talked about the right people.
Yeah.
Because without that,
and that's even it too, is this idea of flying the plane while you build it. The people I have in place running my organizations right now weren't there at the beginning, right? It was just kind of like, and so that's just a whole nother topic. We can talk about finding talent and, how to find that. But like, for me, it's just, I just kind of internally, I know when it's time for me to promote someone or make a hire to hand my responsibilities to.
Right.
And
read a great tweet the other day that said you're one great hire away from radically changing your business. It's very true.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. And I think of the people that I have in my organizations, and I couldn't have scaled or grown or done this stuff right without, one of them, Wanda, who runs Berkshire Hathaway, who's our CEO at Berkshire Hathaway. We didn't have a position for her. She was being relocated into this market because of her husband's job, and we saw her resume, and we're like, well, this is going to be a great team member. It's going to help us. And so we didn't have the money or a position for her. We just created one and started paying her. And, she's gone from that to the CEO in, 4 or 5 years. And so,
wow.
But she wasn't there for the first year. Like, she wasn't even on our radar. Yeah. And so, or however long it was. So, yeah, good stuff.
Amazing stuff. Okay, so that was point number 3.
Yep, that was his third philosophy. Fourth, and this is tough for me, just-in-time decision-making. And he says, don't make the decision until you have to. And he says, and when you do make the decision, his philosophy is he's making the decision based 80% off of data and 20% off of gut feeling. So just-in-time decision-making. And that's tough for me because I like to make decisions quickly and right away. I was listening to who's the guy? My mind won't blank, but he was talking about, he said, like you have a to-do list, Craig Rochelle. He was like, how you have a to-do list, you need to have a decision list. And so you need to have a dedicated time in your week to make decisions. And you need to have a list of all the decisions that need to be made. And so that you're not, somebody doesn't come and ask you and you're stopping everything you're doing to make a decision to analyze. You're making a decision list. And on Tuesday afternoons, you go through that and you make those decisions. It's pretty.
Yeah. So
I mean, there was more to it.
Somebody comes to you and asks you for something, you say, come back on Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
Exactly.
Actually, looking at the schedule, you might want to come in about 2:25.
Well, it's a really good podcast because he also goes into saying you don't want to have either or decisions to make. It doesn't need to only be two options.
Yeah.
Like when you go to your decision list, there should be 4, 5, 6 options that this decision could go, not just an either or. So anyways, that's a whole nother topic. It's pretty good stuff. But
Right.
So decision making, you make it just in time. And I would say, what does that mean to you? Let's go with that.
When I first read this, it made me think immediately of the book by Daniel Kahneman, I believe, called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, if I have that title correct. And the whole synopsis of that book basically comes down to, it's a very counterintuitive way that we make decisions.
Okay.
Because the biggest decisions in our life, i.e. who we're going to marry, maybe career, just big stuff. We make those decisions very fast and very instinctively. And decisions like, what are you going to wear tomorrow?
Yeah.
Many times relative, we take way long for something for the time horizon that's very small. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard him say 80% of the data and then 20% on instinct, I appreciated that because 80% is doing a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of work in, hey, am I going to open this business over here? Am I going to buy this? We're going to jump into this product category. I think you've absolutely got to do as much due diligence as you can.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there is a gut. There's a gut sense to this. And you talked about earlier about the analysis by paralysis, where you're just frozen because you don't have all of the data to make the decision. You never will. I think that you have to trust that instinct come alongside with your ability to recognize the data that says this is either a good thing or a bad thing. And sometimes you just have to go, let's do it and find out.
Yeah.
Well,
in an ideal world, it's 100% data. Right. You go to AI and you're like, hey, I need this decision.
Yeah. But how can you know that, your biggest competitor is not going to move in right next to you? Or how do you know that, that the person that you have tapped to lead this organization is going to get sick and won't be able to lead the company? So you never know, and you never will.
Never will.
But the book is saying that our instincts are way better than we think. Now, just making decisions blindly on instincts probably not going to work out for you. But I have a bet that when you were talking to your spouse pretty early on, something made you go, you know what? I think I can do this.
Yeah.
Would you like to expound on that?
Yeah. Well, I think that when I'm hearing you talk, my biggest regrets have come from not listening to my gut.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
And so, or dodging a bullet, right? How much did you put into Bitcoin? Well, I don't even know who to talk to about that because some people are still way up on it. I'm like, what are these guys? What are they seeing? I'm not seeing here.
Right.
So I think of, man, I really missed an opportunity. I should have listened to my gut.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah. I can see things that I was way too late on, and that's part of it too, right? Because the first mover may have already pulled your opportunity away because they just weren't waiting on, the writing on the wall, so to speak.
Is there a pattern in what you feel, what arena in business do you feel like you tend to wait too long on? Because I know mine.
Well, tell me what you mean.
So, to me, I feel like my biggest weakness in waiting or not taking action has to do with personnel.
Whether to hire, whether to let somebody go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that to me, I've held on to people too long, or I've left a position vacant for too long, where I was like, I need to hire this and create this position, but I might wait a year, and then I'm thinking back, man, I should have done this a year ago because we missed out on so much, or man, this person has really put us in a bad position because we waited too long.
Right. Another great tweet This business owner has
X.
this tweet, X, another great X.
Sorry, Elon.
And he says, if I wake up thinking about you 3 mornings in a row and we're not sleeping together, i.e. my wife, you got to go.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like, wow. You know, because that's true. That employee that you wake up thinking about 3 mornings in a row, 4 mornings in a row, your gut is saying something.
Yes.
Right?
Well, for me, it was the desire to show up at the office has gone away because I don't want to be around this person. Right? It's just like, that's when I know it's gone too long. Right?
Right.
I tell my managers all the time, I'm like, you know, when they come to me about an employee, you know, attitude or whatever, I'm like, in my experience, it doesn't get better.
Right.
Like, don't wait too long.
Right.
You know, and then within a couple of weeks, they're like, yeah, you're right. I should have fired him that day. You told me that, but I waited 3 weeks.
Yeah. It always happens that way.
It always happens that way.
You know, for me, I think there's certainly mounds of stories like this from myself too, or maybe not pulling the trigger on somebody because, just like with Wanda, what you said earlier, I don't have a spot for him. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this person. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. But I think generally speaking, if it's the right person and they're very talented and they can make a big difference, it's going to figure itself out pretty quick. So, you know, I've had those moments. But then other opportunities, like maybe there's another business where you think this market would work for what you're doing, and you wait, and next thing you know, somebody else has swooped in, and now the opportunity's gone, you know, for at least the next 40 years. So those opportunities, I've seen quite a few of them, and we do in our company go very slow with certain things. We are very thoughtful, and we do try to think.
And so in that instance where that opportunity passed away and you're never going to get that opportunity again,
right?
Was it, what percentage of data versus gut did you have?
Probably felt like 50-50 at that point, because we hadn't done any real exploration. But there's one in particular where, man, it would have been a phenomenal opportunity for our company. We just felt that we didn't have, and we touched on this earlier, we didn't feel like we had the leadership bench in place. And so now I think we've done a much better job with our leadership bench. We're in a much better place. So now those opportunities, I can kind of pull my eyes up and look around a little bit more. But it was that exact point about the right people being there. Because if you don't have the right people there, you can't look over at the next thing because you've got this thing to deal with. So part of that having to wait is some of our own internal issue. But now that we've, you know, done a better job with leadership bench, I think we are more open to the next opportunity and seeing where it goes from here. But it's such a process, and we're talking about years. I mean, better than a decade of trying to get yourself in this particular seat where you can even consider what I'm talking about. Because for so many years, you've known me for a long time, things would pop up and it's just like, oh man, I would love that. That makes so much sense. Oh, yeah. I would love to do it. And it's like, we're just not ready. Yeah. We're just not ready.
Was Kevin Costner ready to build the baseball field? Build it, they will come.
Worked out.
Do you feel like that with Blanchard?
Worked out.
Build it, and they will come.
Well, you know what? But the thing with Blanchard is, part of my mind is thinking, you know, you could have done this 4 years ago. Yeah. Why didn't you do it 4 years ago?
Well, you probably mentioned it to me for the first time 8 years ago.
That's right. Yeah. And 4 years ago, it would have been a lot cheaper, and maybe the interest rate would have been a lot better, and then you would have been so much further down the road in terms of your ability to, you know, pay your debt down. So
you feel like you waited too long?
We waited longer than we should have. Okay. Waiting on more information. Right.
Yeah.
Waiting on.
Well, yeah, because I remember you being like, "Well, this company might be coming in. I know this company has people here looking at land here." And,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. And then you wait, and next thing you know, your expenses the expenses for this project might be double of what they would have been.
Oh yeah.
Because of just waiting until after the pandemic and all the craziness and inflation. So look, man, I mean that is part of all of our struggle, is this decision making process, and to try to get it the best we can. Yep. But my gut was telling me years ago, you don't have all the information, but we should do this.
Yeah, and part of mine is and it goes into the data, right? If I do this thing, and absolute worst case scenario, how much time and money is it going to cost me?
That's right.
And am I okay with that?
Yeah.
Am I okay with trying this for 12 months? The payoff could be this. The worst case scenario could be this amount of money. And am I okay with it? And that changes for everybody.
Right.
Right.
Well, and being on tour, I've lived on $5 a day.
You have.
Eating Taco Bell twice.
What was your go-to? Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, it's something off the dollar menu, which I think is
the
long
cravings.
gone now.
The cravings.
Oh, that's right. But my wife did not live that way. So, that's,
Do you
gotta be
still,
careful.
though, I mean, you go hear a local band play, do you just like start craving that Taco Bell?
Sometimes late at night.
Or you play a show?
Sometimes. Oh, absolutely.
After you play a show?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right.
So it's always like, for me, I'd much rather prefer the Whataburger.
I was going to say,
but
Whataburger is a better.
It's a time trade-off.
Yeah.
Do I want to be at home in bed in 15 minutes or 45 minutes?
Do I want to wait in that line?
Exactly. That Whataburger line, because they make it fresh.
Yeah.
They say they do.
And look, my income is better than $5 a day than what it was, so I can afford the Whataburger now. Okay.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a crazy night, maybe stop at both.
Ooh.
A little appetizer.
Bold choice. Bold choice.
A little appetizer on the way. So while you're waiting in the Whataburger line, hey, you're snacking on those little cinnamon twists. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you know what?
Have you ever thought about that?
You're really taking this to
you need to hang
level.
out with bigger people. Is what I think.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. So gut, the way we're making decisions, 80% data, 20% gut. I like that.
All right, and this is a great one too, and not easy. This is his last leadership philosophy.
Okay.
And then what I would think, maybe we throw out a few of ours that we might have.
Got it.
A great leader takes less than his share of the credit and more of his share of the blame.
It's just a fact. I mean, I agree with it wholeheartedly. It speaks a lot to the first point that he made, in that, ultimately that's the modeling, that's the posture you want to have with your team, is that the success is the team's success, and you want to demonstrate by taking more of the blame. You want to demonstrate real ownership. You want to say that, hey, listen, I'm willing. I'm going to take a quick aside here.
Yep.
If you want to make my day, make a mistake and then do this. So if you want to make my day and you make a mistake, come to me and say, Josh, I got to tell you something. Man, I screwed up.
Yeah.
But here's what I'm going to do about it.
Yep.
Because, wow, that blew me away. Number one, you made a mistake. Look,
you're admitting.
Maybe it cost, who knows what
the
it
worst
cost,
thing
$1,000.
is the worst thing is leaders finding out the mistakes.
That's exactly right.
And then you find out multiple people knew about it and nobody told you.
But yes, but the person is coming forward.
Sure.
They're taking ownership.
Correct.
They're saying, "Hey, I made this mistake, but here's what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
Because what that signals to me is somebody who is really got the right approach for this situation, and I'm not really mad at that.
Yeah.
I'm not really mad at somebody who said, "I made a mistake, but here's what I think I'm going to do to try to make it right." That actually makes my day to hear that. Now, like you said, if it was a cover up or you hear it from somebody else, that's the worst. So I'm just going to kind of reverse that, and by taking ownership of the failure with myself, it's that same modeling I want others to have. It's this idea that, I got to take my share of the blame for this. I'm not perfect. I'm fallible.
Yeah.
Hopefully that this is a place we're creating that you want to be a part of and that you like sharing this mission, but I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, here's what I think we need to do to go forward. Here's where I think we can correct this ship, or, here's the changes that we need to make to move forward. It's just a modeling thing for me. Mm-hmm. I don't love just being the scapegoat, particularly if it wasn't my fault, so maybe somebody got, let's just say they were drunk out at the job site or whatever and rammed the forklift into the house and knocked it down, right? I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what was it that I could have done?
Yeah.
How could I have avoided this situation?
Yeah, I think that's it, right. I mean, I think that when crisis hits, or crap hits the fan, it is what could we learn from this? What could we have done? The easiest thing is to place blame.
That's right.
Well, it wasn't me.
That's right.
I
didn't do it.
I didn't mind.
But how many big stories do you hear? Big corporations, big politicians. How many? You can just see it.
Pass the buck.
They're training. It's like they're trained not to take ownership of any situation.
Yes.
To never take the blame.
Never.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is, and I think that is attractive, right? I mean, I think the opposite is attractive, right? I think 100%. that is people, because the majority of people don't resonate with political talk or how politicians act
exactly
or
right.
dancing around things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have friends that are attorneys, and it drives me crazy. I'm like, just say one thing definitive. Like, it's like, I get it. You can dance around anything,
right?
But there are some truths,
right?
But yeah, that is a big one, and I think that does also speaks back to the empowering is, when people in your organization know that, when things go bad, you're going to be a part of it. You're not going to place blame, but you're going to be a part of owning up to it and solving it, and they feel more empowered.
That's right.
Yep.
And you just said it too, why we don't like that when we hear politicians dance around it, why we don't like that when we hear bigwigs, pass the buck, mm-hmm. It's because it's not authentic. I mean,
yeah.
There's a real authenticity in somebody saying, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is on me, but I can do better. I think a lot of people do find connection through that, as opposed to looking at somebody who's just saying, listen, if it wasn't for these morons over here, we'd be fine.
Yeah. I think that. Use your own 5 o'clock.
Right. Yeah. Right. But no, man, I think it's authentic. I think it's genuine. I think it's human, and I think it's the right posture to lead in. Yeah. So there you go.
Cool.
That's great.
Do you have any thoughts? Is there any leadership principles that you would throw out there that kind of govern your leadership style?
I think the 5 that he's mentioned are very, very strong. Listen, this is not as hard as you would make it out to be.
Yes.
I think ultimately really caring about people. Now, let me say this. I heard this the other day. It's not about what's on the wall. It's about what's happening down the hall. Mm-hmm. And so all business owners, leaders say, I care about my people. Mm-hmm. I care about my people.
Yeah.
But you really know the ones that do and the ones that feels a little bit more like lip service, right?
Yeah.
And we can't define how everybody goes about expressing that. But ultimately, I think truly caring about people and who they are and where they are. And as your business gets bigger, it's harder because you don't have as much, if there's 60 people, I don't have a lot of time during the day for every single person, but I can foster that through the sense of leadership in the organization. I can foster, with their direct reports, hey, this is my philosophy, this is how we want to lead this business, and this is how I want you to lead. Yeah. And so I think for me, truly caring about people, not just in a hey, lip service way, but in a true, authentic way, to me is a big part of what we do.
Yes. And I would say you said it's not hard, it is hard, right? But in this, because the rub is always going to be obviously caring for people, but the organization, right? I mean, that has to be your first. That is your first line of protection. Is I have to do everything to protect this organization.
Start the TikTok camera. The best phrase I ever heard for this was from a very interesting individual who said, "You want to lead with an iron fist and a velvet glove."
There you go.
And I think that really says it great. You could also say we're, tough on process, soft on people.
Or the biblical, the dove and the serpent, right? You have
There
to
you
be,
go.
yeah.
There you go.
But then I would also say, so here's one of here's something that I read a few years ago that keeps coming back to me, especially when I let my emotions, like I'm having a hard time to let someone go or admonish them or to tell someone no, is not everyone's going to be treated equal, but everyone's treated fairly.
Right.
And I think that that's where we get that a little bit skewed sometimes, that we feel like we have to treat everyone equal.
Yeah. Now that's one that you really have to unpack, because it's tough to get into the nuance of that.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. I mean, I'm not saying that you're going about your business in a way that doesn't ultimately serve your customer, because we talked about that all the way in the beginning of the process, and how we're restricting some behaviors because we want to lead to the best outcomes. That's part of working the business.
Sure.
But through that, you have to be very careful about, are people losing some basic sense of humanity in the way that you treat them or think or even think about
Sure.
it. Because it's easy to think, hey, I'm paying this person. Why aren't they? It's easy to get really frustrated, right?
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, hey, they're on the clock. They should be moving.
Well, and I think the best thing for them is to be tough at times on them, right?
Well, it's holding standard, really, right? And,
yes.
And most of the time, you're holding the standard to protect the people who are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Right. So that is tricky.
You owe it to the other people in the organization.
Correct.
To hold that standard.
Correct. But I think it seems counterintuitive, but it's really not. I mean, you do have to have high standards, but then you also have to care deeply for people, and you can do both. It can be done.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest puzzle jigsaw for
sometimes
for
the caring is letting them go.
Sometimes it is. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. If this is just not the right fit, absolutely. So it can be done, but I think for me, I would just add caring deeply for people.
Yes.
How about you?
No, I agree. I mean, I think that, going back to that, the equal and fairly is, I think just treating everybody fairly, and not everybody in the organization has equal stature or bring equal amount of value to the team. And
Right.
it's okay to say that, right? Because if they all brought equal value, they'd all get paid the same.
Right.
Right. But treating them fairly, and that goes into caring about people.
And with
Just treating
dignity,
them
no
fairly.
matter their role.
Sure.
If it could be the janitor, but it could be your number one agent.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the same humanity.
human.
I mean, that's exactly right.
They're
The dignity
human.
should be exactly the same.
They have goals and ambitions in life.
Correct.
They have crappy stuff happening in their life as well, right?
Correct.
And they have things going on, and
Yeah.
So, cool. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up, unless you
I
have
think
anything
so.
else to say.
Nope. I think this was quite a ride.